Well, we are in the month of May. We've got all the numbers hot off the press. Stick around. Today, we've got your May market update. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It is your Central Maine realtor, Nick Isgro with eXp Realty. And today I have all the numbers that we've just downloaded. We're gonna bring you all of the numbers you need so you can analyze the market correctly as opposed to reading these national articles and what's going on not in your market, but here in Central Maine. Now, if you're new to the channel, I want to welcome you here. If you've never been here before, we cover all things real estate here in the state of Maine, but particularly right here in the Central Maine market. If that's of interest to you or adds value to your process in the buying and selling of homes, or maybe you just like real estate, do me a favor. Go ahead and like this video, hit subscribe, knock that little alarm bell. You'll be notified every time we put out new content. Now, as always, as I break out the numbers here, we're gonna first look at the sales data. We're gonna break that down, move into inventories, and then finally get into pricing so we can wrap this all up in a little bow. Now, it's going to be important that you follow some of this because, as always, all of these numbers combined are going to paint a larger picture, and we want to look at trends, not specific numbers, because specific numbers don't mean anything unless we're looking at the trend and put everything into context. So kicking it right off, I want to get into new listings here in Central Maine, Kennebec County. New listings headed into the month of May, 153 new listings. Now, if we look at 1 year ago in April, that's not really a big deal. We had 144 the same time last year. However, if you look at this line on this graph, we can see it's a huge increase from what we saw over the last few months. And this is kind of the discussion we've been having, right? Like, what are the inventories gonna do? Are we finally gonna see more homes coming to market? Because the biggest complaint that we're getting right now is that, Nick, there's just nothing available. There's nothing on the market. Well, here you go. It was a little bit longer going this year than it was last year. I don't know if that was because of the weather or what it was. I know my own personal experience is sellers have been creeping a little bit slower coming to market this spring, but here we are, new inventory on the market. That's great news if you are a buyer. Next, we want to look at the sales data. These are going to be sold listings, actually that sold during the month of April, or at least closed out of escrow. Property actually changed hands during the month of April, leading us into some speculation of what might happen in May. A little bit over 100 listings were sold. Now, a couple things we want to look at with this number. A, it's not really earth-shattering if we look at last year, right? If we look at last year's numbers, we can see there's actually times where we sold way more than that as we got out of the spring. It's a little bit more than we sold a year ago in the same time period. But when you look at this trend in that graph coming up, it's not really that big of a deal. What is a big deal is that it's an uptick, just like the sales data from the month before. We've seen lower active inventories, and that's led to people saying, hey, there's nothing on the market. Well, clearly some of these new homes coming to market have had some curb appeal and people are out there buying. It's also a seasonality thing, right? The weather is good in the same sense that sellers are coming to the market. Buyers are also coming back into the market ready for their season to get in and make that purchase. So a little bit more sales activity than we had before. Again, nothing earth-shattering. So we added more new listings. We sold a little bit more than we sold a year ago. What is happening with the overall inventory? This is an important number. 215 active listings. So this is a big deal because a year ago we had 155. So if you look at the graph, you can see there were times where we certainly had more homes available at the market, but those were selling at a faster clip. So it was keeping those overall inventory numbers down. Also, when we look at the trend line, you can see we were on that steady decline, fewer homes, fewer homes. Now all of a sudden, coming into spring, late spring, we are inching our way back up to some higher inventory numbers. All this said, if you're a seller, that means obviously there's gonna be a little bit more competition than if you had listed in March, so keep that in mind. If you're a buyer, it means there's just gonna be more options available depending on what the competition is and how things are priced. So get out there, get a look. There's gonna be a little bit more available to you than there was over the last few months if you were disappointed. So we covered the sales data. We want to wrap this up by looking at the months of supply, because this to me is one of the most important numbers. It's going to be something that drives a lot of other things, particularly pricing, and we'll get into that. But when we look at months of supply, this would be if we were to sell everything we have in the market right now, bring in no new homes, how long would it take for us to sell all of the listings currently on the market at the pace that they have been selling at? Looking at it right now, 1.29 months of supply. Now, if we're just looking over the past 4 or 5 months, not a big deal. We've been there before. We've actually had a little bit higher inventory. But look at last spring, the numbers were way down. We had less than 1 month of supply. And this is key because when we're thinking about those multiple offer scenarios, when we're thinking about coming to market and pricing your home, this graph is important because what it's showing us is that over the last 5 to 6 months, there has actually been more inventory based off number of homes in the market and the rate at which they are selling, which is another important thing, leaving these overall higher months of supply. That's going to have a little bit of a downward pressure on the pricing. So if you're getting into the market, you want to consider that. So now that we've covered the sale figures, I want to move right into pricing. We're going to start with the average time on market. Again, this is an average. We want to look at the sale to list price ratio so you can see what are things actually selling for versus what they're listed for in the MLS. And then finally, we're going to take a look at the median sold price to see if there's any discrepancies there with where the trends have been over the last year. So first up, I want to bring average days on market. Let's bring it right up here. All right, average days on market, 43 days on the market. So roughly, a little bit over a month is the time that you might expect given the current trends, and depending on how pricing, if you're pricing like everybody else and your home looks like everything else in your niche or your specific market, about 44 days. Now, a year ago, if you look at this line, it was only 43 days. So for April alone, that's not really a big deal. This is roughly where we were a year ago. What's going to be telling is over the coming months, because you can see where that dropped off last year as we got into May, June, July, and August, the time on market drastically decreased, okay? So if this continues to have a longer market times, we're going to consider that there's probably going to be a little bit of downward pressure on pricing. If May, June, and July take off like last year and all of a sudden people are fighting for the homes and they are gone, in less than a month like they were a year ago, then that's going to bring some upward pressure on the pricing. So right now, there's not really much to say other than, it is trending in the right direction. We're roughly where we were a year ago. But it's important that you look at this snapshot. You look at where April was last year, look at what happened immediately, May, June, July. The coming months are going to tell us what that looks like. Now, just based off some anecdotal experience from my time in the market right now, recently listing a home, having it sold in one day, I think if, the sellers and the real estate agents together can make the right decisions about pricing and how they market the home and doing it right, I think we're going to see that. I think buyers are in the market now. They're ready. We're seeing a return of out-of-state buyers, people moving to Maine as well, a lot of job opportunities, things like that. That's what we're seeing in the market. So I would expect that when I come back next month, we're going to see this number drastically drop. If we don't, that's going to be a totally different conversation. I'm looking forward to it. All right, now I want to talk about sale to list price ratio. Sale to list price ratio, you put a home in the market, are you getting what you're asking for? Are you getting 100%? That would be the seller gets exactly what they ask for. If we look at this chart, 98.5% of the list price. So that's great news. That means pricing is still strong. It means there is some negotiation cooked into the market, 98.5% of what sellers are asking for. But here's the key. I've been talking about this for a few months now. It's 96% of the original list price right here in Central Maine. So we're reading articles about prices going up. We're reading articles about more homes selling all over the place. This is why it's important to be market specific. Here in Central Maine, there are still price drops being cooked into the market. Does that mean the market's going down? No, it means that sellers have been pricing too aggressively. So if you're getting into the market now, you're looking to sell your home, you really want to get a lot of data and work with your real estate agent so that you can see what is the exact competition for your home. People who are looking to maybe come take a tour of your home, what other houses might they be looking at? How does your price stack up to those? And go with the competitive side, not shooting for the moon. If you do that, it's still gonna move fast. If you don't, you're gonna be one of these few percent of the homes here that are having those price drops cooked in and negotiating down even from there a little bit. Just something important to remember. If you're a buyer, hey, people are negotiating. Put in an offer. If you're the only offer on the table, you might not need to offer the asking price. You probably are gonna have a little bit of negotiating room, so check it out. Last but not least, we're gonna bring up the sold median price. This is important. It's not necessarily gonna tell you that prices are up or down unless we see a big drastic change in here, but it's gonna give us a sense of what has happened to pricing over the last year. Have there been dramatic shifts? Are we expecting more shifts to come? Bring it up here. In the month of April 2024, median sold price here in Kennebec County, $275,000. Now, it is a little bit less than we saw the year before, which was $290,000. But look at this graph. It's gone up a little bit. It's gone down a little bit. Every other month, we're seeing a little shift. It's not going anywhere. What that means is that we have a stable market. It means we're not seeing massive price reductions. So that means even when those price reductions we talked about on the pricing, on the sale to list price ratio, those are people coming back into the line with where the market has been. That means they were pricing above, expecting the market to continue to move upward. And really, in reality, we're seeing a very, very stable market like we saw last year. I'm not seeing any kind of major swing down. I'm not seeing any kind of major swing up. Important to keep in mind, and I think there's something to be said about that there's some stability into the market. If you're a buyer or a seller, no matter where you are in this thing, you don't need to worry about going wild with some, speculation of what's going to happen. Just look at what the market has been doing, and it's going to be your guide for what you might want to do to propel yourself forward in the market. That is really it. That's what I have for you this week. So that's the summary of the market here in Central Maine as we head into the late spring market in the month of May. And if there's anything I want to stress here again and again and again, it's you're going to read a lot of articles right now about what's happening nationally or even statewide. But here in Central Maine, it's a very stable market. We do have higher inventories than we had a year ago, and that means if you're a seller, if you price correctly and price competitively, you probably won't need to negotiate a lot. If you don't, if you're shooting for the moon, the top price that you think you can get, you might have a price reduction. If not, you're at least probably going to negotiate it down a little bit when it comes to whatever purchase and sale agreement you start to negotiate through. Now, if you are a buyer or a seller in the market and you want a little bit more information, or you want somebody who maybe could guide you through this, you're thinking about tipping your toes in, look at my information. All my contact information is linked in the post below. We'll be glad to connect with you. If you're not in my market, I work with agents all over the United States and Canada. We'll be happy to connect you with a professional in whatever your specific market may be. As always, I thank each and every one of you for sticking around to the end of this video, and until the next one, I'll see you next time.